Introduction, The Kingdom Within. Stop for a moment. Right now, in this very second, look at your life, not at your bank account, not at your calendar, and not at the people currently demanding your attention. Look at your life through the lens of your own experience. How does it feel to be you? For many, the answer is a haunting mixture of persistent anxiety, quiet desperation, or a nagging sense that there is a missing piece to the puzzle of existence. We spend our lives running, accumulating, achieving, and striving, hoping that if we just reach the next milestone, we will finally arrive at a state of lasting peace. But what if the arrival point isn't a destination at all? What if you are carrying the terrain of your own existence inside you, constructing your reality brick by brick with the materials of your own consciousness? The most revolutionary, misunderstood, and overlooked truth in the history of human thought was uttered by Jesus 2 millennia ago: the kingdom of God is within you. Most of humanity has spent centuries looking for this kingdom in the clouds, in temples, or in a distant future after death. We have treated heaven as a geography, a place we go to, rather than a state of being we emanate from. But the ancient wisdom is clear: the kingdom is not a location, it is an internal frequency. It is the invisible architecture of your own mind. When we speak of heaven or hell, we are not speaking of fire and brimstone or golden streets, we are speaking of the quality of your consciousness. Heaven is the state of mind where you are aligned with your highest purpose, grounded in peace, and aware of your inherent worth. It is a state of psychological and spiritual coherence. Hell, conversely, is not a punishment inflicted upon you by a vengeful force. It is the natural, logical, and inevitable result of a mind divided against itself. It is the state of chronic worry, resentment, self-devaluation, and the persistent feeling of being a victim of circumstances you cannot control. You are the architect of your own experience. Every single day, you are either building a sanctuary or a prison. You do this through the quiet, consistent stream of your thoughts, the depth of your beliefs, the intensity of your perceptions, and the fundamental posture you take toward the world. Most people walk through their lives as if they are passengers on a bus they didn't board, being driven to places they never chose. They feel trapped by their history, limited by their finances, and bruised by their relationships. They believe their internal state is a mere reaction to their external world. They think, if my job were better, I would be happy, or, if my partner were different, I would feel loved. This is the fundamental reversal of truth that keeps humanity in bondage. The truth is that the outer world is not the cause, it is the mirror. Your life, your career, your relationships, your physical health, and your level of peace, is an objective projection of your subjective state. If your mind is a chaotic storm of fear and doubt, your life will manifest as a series of circumstances that confirm those fears. If your mind is a garden of faith, clarity, and intentionality, your life will inevitably bloom into an expression of those virtues. This book is a journey back to the seat of your own power. It is an invitation to stop looking outward for salvation and to begin the work of inner cultivation. We will explore how your thoughts become emotions, how your emotions crystallize into an identity, and how that identity dictates the boundaries of your reality. You will learn that you are not a victim of your thoughts, you are their master. You are not a prisoner of your history, you are the writer of your future. The promise of this book is simple: if you can change the state of your mind, you can change the quality of your life. This is not a metaphor. It is a fundamental law of consciousness. When you shift your dominant internal state, the world around you is forced to realign. Opportunities that were once invisible become obvious. People who once drained your energy begin to shift their behavior or drift out of your sphere of influence. Challenges that once felt like insurmountable mountains shrink into obstacles you can easily navigate. We will deconstruct the mental habits that have kept you tethered to mediocrity and pain. We will look at the architecture of belief, the power of imagination, and the discipline of emotional mastery. We will move beyond the superficial, positive thinking that often fails to produce real change and enter into the realm of conscious dominion. This is the process of taking back the keys to the kingdom. It is time to stop waiting for the world to give you permission to be happy, successful, or peaceful. The world will never give you what you do not first cultivate within. The kingdom is already there, waiting for your recognition. It is time to step inside. Chapter Summary. The misunderstanding of the kingdom. Heaven and hell are not geographic destinations or afterlife consequences, but internal states of consciousness that dictate our reality. The mirror principle. Our external circumstances are a reflection of our internal mental state. We do not react to the world, we project our consciousness onto it. The myth of the victim. True suffering stems from the belief that our internal state is dictated by external events, rather than the other way around. The power of recognition, the kingdom of God within, is an inherent capacity for peace and power that requires our conscious activation through disciplined thought and belief. The invitation to dominion. You have the authority to re-engineer your inner landscape, and this book serves as the guide to reclaiming that authority and transforming your life. Chapter 1, The Invisible Prison. We often imagine a prison as a place of steel bars, stone walls, and locked gates. We think of confinement as something physical, imposed by outside forces, a difficult boss, a lack of resources, a failing relationship, or a history that seems to dictate our limitations. But the most formidable prisons on this earth have no bars. They are not constructed from concrete, they are built from thought. They are invisible, yet they are more restrictive than any iron cell because they move with you wherever you go. The invisible prison is the state of mind where you believe your thoughts are facts. It is a subtle trap, one that is easy to step into and exceptionally difficult to notice because it feels entirely normal. You wake up, and immediately your mind begins a broadcast: I am tired, today is going to be stressful, I am behind on my goals, or things never work out for me. Because these thoughts arise automatically, you accept them as accurate descriptions of reality. You treat them as if they are news bulletins from the outside world rather than simple, passing mental events. This is the first brick in the wall of your confinement, the confusion between your observation and your reality. The mechanism is deceptively simple, yet it governs the entire trajectory of a human life. It begins with a thought. You think something, perhaps repeatedly. That thought carries a certain emotional charge: fear, anxiety, inadequacy, or resentment. When you repeat that thought enough times, the emotion becomes a familiar, recurring guest. Eventually, this constant internal weather, this specific mixture of thought and emotion, fuses together to form a sense of identity. You stop saying, I am feeling anxious, and start saying, I am an anxious person. You stop saying, I made a mistake, and start saying, I am a failure. Once that identity is solidified, the prison is complete. You are now operating from a fixed center. You view the world through the filter of your identity. If you identify as a person who struggles, you will unconsciously interpret neutral events as further proof that you are struggling. You will filter out opportunities, ignore supportive data, and magnify challenges. Your brain, that extraordinary machine designed to confirm your deepest beliefs, will go to work proving that your identity is true. Consider the person who believes they are inherently unlucky. When they get a parking ticket, it is proof of their bad luck. When a project is delayed, it is proof of their bad luck. When a friend is busy and cannot talk, it is interpreted as rejection, further proof of their bad luck. They are living in an invisible prison where the walls are made of their own confirmation bias. They are safe in their misery because it is familiar. It is what they know. The idea of being lucky or successful feels alien, dangerous, and threatening to the identity they have spent years constructing. The tragedy of the invisible prison is that it offers the illusion of safety. If you have decided that you are a person who never quite makes it, you don't have to take the risks necessary to succeed. You don't have to face the vulnerability of putting your full potential on the line. You can stay small, stay guarded, and stay within the confines of your self-imposed limitations, all while feeling a deep, aching frustration. You blame the world for your lack of progress, never realizing that you are the one holding the keys to the lock. We often cling to our suffering because it is the foundation of our current personality. If you were to let go of the story that you are a victim of your past, who would you be? If you were to drop the mantle of someone who is always overwhelmed, what would you do with your time? This uncertainty is terrifying to the ego, which prizes stability above all else, even if that stability is painful. The ego would rather be right in its misery than wrong and vulnerable in its expansion. Recognizing the invisible prison requires a radical shift in awareness. You must begin to watch your mind as if you were a neutral observer. You must stop identifying with the mental chatter and start noticing the observer of that chatter. When you feel a surge of anger or a wave of doubt, stop and ask, is this me, or is this just a thought passing through? You are not your thoughts. You are the space in which your thoughts occur. When you realize that you are the conscious presence that perceives the mind, the prison walls begin to lose their density. You do not need to tear them down with force. You simply need to realize that they are illusions. They are constructs of an outdated program. The moment you catch yourself in a loop of self-limitation, you are standing at the threshold of freedom. You have identified the prison. By observing it without judgment, you stop feeding it with your emotional energy. You stop identifying with it. You allow it to exist, but you refuse to let it define your next action. You realize that while you cannot always control the first thought that enters your mind, you have absolute power over whether you entertain it, dwell on it, or act upon it. This is the beginning of dominion. It is the realization that your identity is not something you are given by circumstances, but something you choose in every moment. You can choose to define yourself by your fears, or you can choose to define yourself by your capacity to transcend them. The prison door has been unlocked all along, you simply have to push it open and walk out into the vast, uncharted territory of your own potential. Chapter Summary. The illusion of external confinement, physical limitations are secondary to the mental prisons we construct for ourselves through our beliefs and identities. The thought-emotion-identity loop. We start with a single thought, charge it with emotion, and eventually calcify it into an identity, which then dictates how we interpret reality. The trap of confirmation bias. Our brains are wired to confirm our self-image. By identifying with limitation, we filter out success and magnify evidence of our own inadequacy. The ego's resistance to freedom. We often hold on to suffering because it provides a familiar, stable identity, making the prospect of change feel more frightening than staying trapped. The power of the observer. Freedom begins by shifting from being a victim of our thoughts to becoming a neutral observer. Chapter 2, The Garden of the Mind. If the mind is a prison, it is also a garden. The distinction lies entirely in the gardener's intent. A garden is not a static object, it is a dynamic, living system that responds to the seed sown within it and the care provided to the soil. In the architecture of your consciousness, every thought is a seed. There is no such thing as a neutral thought. Every idea you dwell upon, every worry you entertain, and every vision you nurture is a biological and metaphysical command being sent into the depths of your subconscious. Most people treat their minds like an unkempt backyard. They allow every passing thought to take root, regardless of whether it is a flower or a weed. They hear a bit of bad news, and they plant the seeds of anxiety. They observe someone else succeeding, and they plant the seeds of envy. They look at their own past, and they plant the seeds of regret. Then, when their life begins to produce a harvest of stress, competition, and stagnation, they act surprised. They look at the thorny, overgrown state of their reality and ask, why is my life like this? They fail to realize that they have been the ones sowing the seeds. The law of mental cultivation is as precise and unforgiving as the law of gravity. You will always reap what you sow. If you spend your days watering the weeds of, I can't, I'm not enough, and, it's too difficult, you cannot expect to harvest the fruit of abundance, confidence, or ease. Your subconscious mind does not possess a sense of humor, and it does not judge the quality of your seeds. It simply accepts what you provide and sets to work turning it into your external reality. It is a faithful servant, diligently growing whatever you plant, be it a poisonous shrub or a fruit-bearing tree. The reason most people struggle to change their lives is that they are attempting to prune the branches of their reality while leaving the roots of their thoughts undisturbed. They try to fix the symptoms of their lives through external action, working more hours, changing jobs, or buying self-help gadgets, without ever addressing the soil of their consciousness. If the soil is saturated with the belief of lack, no amount of external movement will produce a harvest of plenty. You must go to the source. You must become a ruthless curator of your own mental landscape. Reprogramming your inner landscape begins with the radical acceptance of responsibility. It is not about blaming yourself for the weeds that are already there, it is about recognizing that you now have the power to stop watering them. A weed can only survive if you provide it with the water of your attention and the sunshine of your emotional energy. When you withdraw your attention from a fear, it begins to wither. When you stop ruminating on a limitation, it loses its grip on your life. This is the art of intentional mental selection. It requires a level of discipline that is rare, yet it is the only path to true mastery. You must start guarding the gate of your mind as if your life depended on it, because it does. When a fearful thought enters, you do not need to fight it or beat yourself up for having it. You simply recognize it as a weed, acknowledge its presence without feeding it, and immediately redirect your attention toward the seed you wish to grow. If you want to experience love, you must plant seeds of love by focusing on the feeling of being loved, even before you see the physical evidence. If you want to experience success, you must plant seeds of success by focusing on the sensation of achievement. This is not positive thinking in the superficial sense of ignoring facts. It is the act of choosing your primary focus. You are determining what your subconscious mind will focus on to shape your reality. As you cultivate this garden, you will find that the soil of your mind becomes richer, more receptive, and more fertile. You will notice that you are becoming more sensitive to the quality of your thoughts. You will no longer tolerate the encroachment of negative, disempowering narratives because you can literally feel the weeds of fear tightening your chest and lowering your energy. You will begin to value your peace of mind more than you value the validation of the world. This process is a daily, sacred practice. It is not something you do once and then forget. You must walk through your day with the awareness of a steward. You are tending to the field of your potential. You are clearing the debris of old conditioning, pulling the roots of doubt, and sowing the seeds of your desired future with intentionality and faith. As you persist, you will witness the turning of the tide. The harvest will begin to change. You will see opportunities appear where there was once only a blank wall. You will see relationships shift in response to your new internal climate. You will see your circumstances begin to bow to the authority of your cultivated consciousness. The garden of your mind will no longer be a chaotic mess of inherited weeds, but a deliberate, flourishing sanctuary. You are the gardener, and your mind is your domain. It is time to plant only what you wish to experience. Chapter Summary. The law of mental cultivation: every thought acts as a seed, and our life is the inevitable harvest. There is no such thing as a neutral thought. The subconscious as a servant: the subconscious mind does not judge the quality of our thoughts. It faithfully brings to fruition whatever we plant, whether it is beneficial or harmful. Address the root, not the branches. Lasting change requires shifting our internal state and focus rather than merely trying to manage external symptoms. The art of withdrawal: fear and limitation only survive when we feed them with our attention. By withholding our emotional investment, we allow those weeds to wither and die. Intentional stewardship. We must act as active gardeners of our minds, consistently clearing away negative conditioning and consciously sowing the thoughts and beliefs that align. Chapter 3. Your reality mirrors your consciousness. If you have ever felt as though the world is conspiring against you, or that life is an endless series of obstacles standing between you and your desires, consider this: the world is not a separate entity acting upon you. It is a reflection. When you look into a mirror, you do not expect the reflection to smile at you before you have smiled first. You know that you must provide the image before the mirror can return the result. Your life is the mirror, and your consciousness is the image. We have been conditioned to believe that we are subjects of the world, pushed around by the economy, the people in our lives, and the circumstances of our upbringing. We see the outer world as the cause and our inner state as the effect. If things go well, we feel good; if things go poorly, we feel bad. This model of reality keeps us in a state of perpetual reactivity. We are effectively trapped as observers, watching our lives happen to us, waiting for the right external events to finally grant us permission to be happy, wealthy, or peaceful. The truth is the exact inverse. Consciousness is the true creator, and the outer world is merely the echo. Your dominant state of mind, the underlying current of how you perceive yourself and your possibilities, is what sets the stage for every event that follows. When you alter your internal state, you are not merely changing your attitude, you are changing the specific frequency to which your life is tuned. When you tune your internal radio to a new station, you hear different music. Similarly, when you tune your consciousness to a new state, you experience a different version of reality. This is not a concept for the faint of heart, for it demands a level of honesty that is often uncomfortable. It requires you to look at a difficult circumstance, a stagnant career, a fractured relationship, or a lack of resources, and recognize that it is a manifestation of a past internal state. This is not about self-condemnation or beating yourself up for your past thoughts. It is about personal responsibility in its purest form. Responsibility is the ability to respond. By acknowledging that you are the creator of your circumstances, you strip away the power of the victim narrative. You reclaim the agency to respond to your life in a new way. When you blame others or your environment for your current state, you surrender your power. You essentially say, I am waiting for these other things to change before I can change. But if the world is a mirror, it will never change until you do. You cannot change the reflection by scrubbing the glass of the mirror, you must change the posture of your own body. You must stop waiting for the external world to fix your internal experience and instead begin to project the internal experience you desire, regardless of what the mirror is currently showing you. This is where many people falter. They attempt to change their consciousness, look in the mirror, see that the external world hasn't shifted instantly, and conclude, it isn't working. They are like someone who plants a seed in the morning and digs it up by the afternoon to see if it has grown, thereby destroying the very life they were trying to cultivate. Your reality has a lag time. It is the physical condensation of your past patterns of thought. The results you see today are the result of the thoughts you held yesterday, last week, and last year. To break the cycle of blame and reactivity, you must persist in your new state of consciousness even when the physical world has not yet caught up. This requires a profound degree of faith and inner stability. You must be able to hold the vision of your desired reality in your mind so clearly, and with such emotional conviction, that your internal state remains anchored there, regardless of the temporary evidence of your current circumstances. When you see a reflection you don't like, perhaps you see evidence of lack or conflict, you do not need to fight it. You do not need to argue with reality. You simply recognize that it is an outdated projection. It is a ghost from the past. You acknowledge it, you breathe through it, and you turn your attention back to the internal state you have chosen. You persist in feeling the state of your fulfillment. You walk through your day as if your goals are already accomplished, as if the peace you seek is already your natural state. As you do this, you will notice a subtle shift. You will stop being triggered by external events. When someone acts unkindly, you no longer see it as a personal attack, you see it as a reflection of their own internal struggle, and you remain centered in your own peace. When a financial challenge arises, you no longer see it as an insurmountable barrier, you see it as a temporary condition that your new, more expansive consciousness will resolve. You are breaking the cycle of being a puppet of your environment. You are becoming the master of your own destiny. By understanding that your reality is a mirror, you stop trying to wrestle with the reflection and start working on the source. You move from a life of frantic, external effort to a life of calm, internal command. The kingdom of God is indeed within, and from that seat of power, you dictate the parameters of the world you inhabit. Chapter Summary. The Mirror Principle. Our external reality is a direct reflection of our internal consciousness. We must shift our internal state before the world can change to match it. The error of reactivity, believing that external events dictate our internal experience, keeps us trapped in a cycle of powerlessness and victimhood. The necessity of persistence. Reality has a lag time, meaning our current physical circumstances reflect our past thoughts. We must remain committed to our new state of consciousness even before external evidence appears. Responsibility versus blame. Taking responsibility for our reality is not about self-blame, but about reclaiming our inherent power to influence our future by choosing our thoughts today. Mastery over environment. By maintaining our internal peace and vision despite external conditions, we stop being victims of our circumstances and begin to. Chapter 4. Heaven is a state before it is a place. We have been conditioned to think of heaven as a reward for a life well lived, a distant destination accessible only after the final curtain of mortality falls. This belief is perhaps the greatest barrier to experiencing the fullness of life. By pushing the concept of heaven into the future, we implicitly grant ourselves permission to remain in a state of discord, anxiety, and struggle in the present. We treat the here and now as a necessary ordeal, a test to be endured until real life begins. But what if heaven is not a place you go to, but a state of being you move through? Ancient wisdom traditions have consistently pointed toward this truth, suggesting that the divine experience is an internal alignment, a frequency of peace that remains steady even in the midst of a storm. When you cultivate an inner heaven, you are not escaping the world, you are mastering your perception of it. You are developing the capacity to live with grace, gratitude, and faith, regardless of the fluctuating conditions of your physical life. This begins with the cultivation of perception. Perception is the lens through which you experience your reality. If you look through the lens of scarcity, every interaction will feel like a transaction and every challenge will feel like a threat. If you look through the lens of heaven, you perceive the world differently. You recognize that you are supported, that you are part of an infinite intelligence, and that everything, even the challenges, is contributing to your expansion. This is the difference between a life lived in fear and a life lived in faith. Gratitude is the quickest, most potent way to shift your internal state into alignment with this heavenly frequency. Gratitude is not merely a polite thank you for things you have received. It is a profound recognition that you are already connected to the source of all supply. When you feel genuine gratitude, you are essentially signaling to your subconscious mind that you have already received what you desire. You are moving from a state of wanting, which is rooted in the belief of lack, to a state of having, which is rooted in the belief of abundance. Living from the end, a practice of profound spiritual maturity, is the act of inhabiting the state of your realized desires. Imagine that you have already achieved the peace, the success, or the life you are working toward. How does it feel to be that person? How does your internal landscape shift when you are no longer worried about the outcome, because the outcome is already a fact? This is not about daydreaming, it is about adopting the emotional signature of your future self today. When you live from the end, you cease the frantic, needy pursuit of your goals. You start to walk with a sense of certainty. You make decisions not out of fear of what might happen, but out of confidence in who you are becoming. This is how you build an internal heaven. It is a psychological sanctuary that you construct inside yourself, a place where you retreat when the world feels chaotic. In this sanctuary, you are always safe, always provided for, and always guided. The beauty of this state is that it does not require an external palace. It can be cultivated while you are doing the dishes, while you are navigating a difficult meeting, or while you are waiting for a train. It is a portable, internal environment. When you maintain this state, the world around you begins to mirror it. You find that you are less affected by criticism, less prone to anxiety, and more capable of acting with wisdom and clarity. You aren't forcing the world to change, you are simply refusing to let the world dictate your inner climate. Many people fear that this level of detachment or inner focus will make them passive or unmotivated. On the contrary, it makes you more effective than you have ever been. When your mind is clear and anchored in an internal state of peace, your actions are not driven by the erratic, scattered energy of fear. They are driven by the calm, steady power of intention. You become a person who moves through the world with purpose, and because you are not leaking energy into worry or resentment, you have more vitality to devote to your true work. You are building a house that no storm can shake, because its foundations are not in the shifting sands of external circumstances, but in the immovable rock of your own consciousness. You are discovering that you can hold a vision of beauty even when the landscape is barren. This is the hallmark of the human spirit at its most evolved, the ability to generate its own light in the darkest of times. Begin today by checking your internal temperature. If you feel the chill of worry or the heat of irritation, pause. Take a breath. Recognize that this is a choice, not an inevitability. Remind yourself that you have the capacity to choose a different state. You are not a passenger, you are the sovereign ruler of your own mind. You can decide, in this very moment, to anchor yourself in a state of peace. You can decide that heaven is not a place you are waiting for, but a state you are currently inhabiting. Chapter Summary. The misplaced goal. Heaven is not a distant afterlife destination but an immediate, internal state of consciousness that we can cultivate in the present. Perception as the key. our experience of the world is dictated by the lens we choose. By shifting from a lens of scarcity to one of abundance and faith, we fundamentally alter our reality. Gratitude as alignment. Gratitude is a powerful tool to signal to the subconscious that we are in a state of having, effectively closing the gap between our desires and our current experience. Living from the end, by embodying the emotional state of our future self today, we move from a place of wanting to one of being, which changes our decisions and actions from fearful to intentional. The portable sanctuary. Cultivating this internal state allows us to remain steady, wise, and empowered, regardless of external circumstances, effectively. Chapter 5, How We Secretly Create Hell. If heaven is a state of conscious alignment and inner peace, then hell is simply the inevitable consequence of a mind left in total disarray. It is not a place you are thrown into, it is a state you descend into when you allow the lower, darker impulses of the ego to occupy the driver's seat of your consciousness. When we speak of hell in the context of human experience, we are describing the mental architecture of chronic suffering. The suffocating grip of fear, the heavy weight of shame, the slow poison of resentment, and the exhausting treadmill of victimhood. The irony of this internal hell is that we often guard it as if it were a precious treasure. We hold on to our grievances, our hurts, and our fears because they have become the defining features of our personality. We have become experts at justifying why we are unhappy. We tell ourselves that our anger is righteous, our fear is realistic, and our resentment is understandable. In doing so, we unwittingly reinforce the very walls that keep our potential, our joy, and our freedom locked away. Consider the role of fear. Fear is a natural biological mechanism designed to keep us safe from immediate, physical threats. However, when we allow fear to shift from a momentary signal into a dominant state of being, we enter a self-imposed hell. We worry about things that have not happened and things that likely never will. This chronic state of anticipation creates a constant hum of cortisol and adrenaline in the body, keeping us in a state of fight or flight that is never resolved because the threat is purely imaginary. We are effectively haunting ourselves, creating a persistent, low-level terror that drains our vitality and clouds our judgment. Closely linked to fear is the shadow of shame. Shame is the belief that there is something fundamentally broken or unlovable about your core identity. Unlike guilt, which says, "I did something wrong," shame says, "I am something wrong." This is the foundation of a very private, very deep hell. When you carry shame, you are constantly hiding, constantly defensive, and constantly waiting for the other shoe to drop. You see the world as a judgmental place because you are looking at it through the lens of your own internal condemnation. You can never truly feel at home in the world when you are at war with yourself. Then there is resentment, the heavy, toxic anchor of the past. To hold on to resentment is to drink poison and hope it kills your enemy. It keeps your mind tethered to old slights, failed relationships, and past injustices. By dwelling on these things, you are essentially reliving the original trauma every time you think about it. You are keeping the past alive in your present, refusing to allow your future to emerge. Resentment is a thief, it steals your ability to be present, your capacity to be creative, and your energy to build something new. It ensures that the hell of yesterday continues to burn today. Perhaps the most insidious architect of this internal hell is the victim mentality. This is the ultimate abdication of power. It is the seductive belief that you are a pawn of fate, that you are lucky if things go well and cursed if they don't. When you adopt a victim identity, you relinquish all agency. You stop looking for solutions because you have decided that the problems are too big and you are too small. You view your life as a series of events done to you, rather than a series of expressions flowing from you. This is a hell of stagnation, where the possibility of growth is permanently blocked by a wall of, "I can't, I shouldn't have to," and, "they won't let me." Chronic comparison is the final ingredient in this mix. We live in an age where we are constantly presented with the curated highlights of other people's lives. When you compare your behind-the-scenes reality, your struggles, your fears, your messy mornings, with someone else's on-stage appearance, you are guaranteed to feel inadequate. Comparison is a trap that prevents you from honoring your own unique path. It keeps you perpetually looking to the left and to the right, rather than focusing on the masterpiece you are meant to create from your own specific set of talents and circumstances. These habits, fear, shame, resentment, victimhood, and comparison, are the invisible architects of your private hell. They are not merely bad moods, they are active, creative processes. You are using your creative energy, which is inherently divine and powerful, to sustain and expand your own misery. The good news, if you can call it that, is that because you are the architect, you are also the only one who can issue the demolition order. You do not need to fight these tendencies with force. You do not need to condemn yourself for having them. You simply need to bring them into the light of awareness. When you catch yourself in the act of harboring resentment, pause and realize, this is a choice. Is this helping me build a life of peace, or is this keeping me in a cell? When you catch yourself in the trap of comparison, remind yourself, my path is unique, and my value is inherent, not relative. Hell is a place you create when you forget who you are. It is the result of letting your mind run on autopilot, fueled by the debris of the past and the anxieties of the future. You can stop feeding the fire at any moment. You can choose to withdraw your attention, to forgive the past, and to reclaim your power. You are not destined for this cycle, you are only participating in it. The exit door is not a transformation of your world, but a transformation of your focus. Chapter Summary. The nature of internal hell. Hell is a self-created state of consciousness resulting from allowing negative impulses, like fear, shame, and resentment, to dominate our mental landscape. The cost of grievances. Holding on to past hurts and resentments anchors us to the past, preventing the present and future from unfolding and draining our vital energy. The trap of victimhood. Adopting a victim mentality is an abdication of personal power, replacing agency with a cycle of helplessness and stagnation. Comparison as an illusion. Constantly measuring our lives against others' curated projections causes unnecessary suffering and distracts us from our unique potential. The power of awareness. We can dismantle our internal hell by consciously observing these destructive habits, recognizing them as choices, and choosing to withdraw. Chapter 6. The voice that isn't you. We are rarely alone in our own heads. Throughout our lives, we have been absorbing messages, opinions, fears, and judgments from parents, teachers, society, and the media. These inputs have been stitched together into a narrative that plays on a continuous, often unconscious loop. We tend to mistake this internal monologue for our own voice, our authentic self. But in reality, much of what we think is nothing more than a compilation of inherited beliefs and reactive patterns. This voice is the ego, and it is a masterful storyteller, but it is not who you are. The ego is the part of your mind that is obsessed with survival, status, and the maintenance of your existing identity. It thrives on labels. I am a successful person, I am a victim of circumstances, I am too old to start over. It clings to these labels as if they were life rafts. When you attempt to grow, to change, or to step into a higher version of yourself, the ego often panics. It interprets any deviation from the status quo as a threat. It whispers, "Who do you think you are?" or "This is too risky, you should stay where it's safe." This voice is not you. It is a software program you inherited. It operates on the principle of least resistance, constantly seeking to keep you within the boundaries of what is known and comfortable. It views awareness as an intruder. When you begin to practice mindfulness, you might notice the ego becoming louder, more critical, and more frantic. It is like an old engine that has been running on the same fuel for decades. It does not want to be serviced or upgraded. Identifying this voice is the first major victory in the war for your own consciousness. You must learn to treat your thoughts as a radio broadcast that you can either listen to or turn off. When you hear that critical, self-limiting voice, you don't need to argue with it, that only gives it more energy. You simply need to label it, "Oh, there is the ego trying to keep me small." By externalizing the thought, you create distance between the thinker and the thought. You realize that you are the one who is noticing the chatter, which means you are separate from it. Much of this mental noise consists of inherited beliefs. We carry the fears of our parents and the prejudices of our culture as if they were absolute truths. We may believe that money is inherently scarce, that success is reserved for special people, or that we are destined to struggle in our relationships. These are not facts, they are old, dusty files that have been running in the background of your consciousness since you were a child. Breaking these unconscious mental loops requires a commitment to radical awareness. It means refusing to accept the validity of a thought simply because it feels familiar. When you find yourself caught in a repetitive cycle of worry or self-criticism, pause and ask, is this thought supporting the life I want to create, or is it supporting the identity I am trying to outgrow? If it is the latter, you have the right to delete it. You do not need to accept every thought that crosses your mind as an instruction for your life. Choosing awareness over reaction is the cornerstone of inner dominion. The ego is reactive, it lashes out, it defends, it seeks validation, and it cowers. The higher self, by contrast, is responsive and creative. It operates from a place of calm, objective clarity. When you are operating from the higher self, you do not need to prove anything to anyone. You do not need to defend your choices or wallow in past mistakes. You see the situation for what it is, and you decide on the most effective path forward. This transition from ego-driven reaction to conscious responsiveness is a process of constant realignment. There will be days when the old voice is loud and insistent. It will try to convince you that your limitations are real and that your expansion is a foolish dream. When this happens, do not despair. Recognize the voice for what it is, a ghost of the past. And gently turn your focus back to the present moment. You are not killing the ego, you are putting it back in its proper place as a tool for navigation, rather than the master of your destiny. You are the one who chooses the radio station. You have the ultimate authority to decide which thoughts you will endorse, which beliefs you will maintain, and which patterns you will evolve beyond. By becoming the master of your inner voice, you stop living a life of automatic reactions and start living a life of deliberate, intentional design. The silence that follows the silencing of the ego is not empty, it is full of wisdom, guidance, and the quiet, powerful potential of your true self. Chapter Summary. The ego as a storyteller. The persistent inner voice we identify as ours is often an inherited loop of societal, cultural, and past-conditioned messages designed for survival rather than fulfillment. Externalizing the chatter, by observing the ego as a separate entity, like a radio broadcast, we stop identifying with its limiting narratives and recognize our true, witnessing self. Challenging inherited beliefs. Many of our core assumptions about success, scarcity, and identity are outdated programs that need to be evaluated and discarded if they do not serve our current path. Reaction versus response. The ego reacts based on fear and habit, the higher self responds with clarity and intention. We must move from an unconscious, reactive state to a conscious, responsive one. Reclaiming authority. We are the programmers of our own minds, with the power to select which beliefs to hold and which thoughts to act upon, effectively transforming our lives. Chapter 7, The Architecture of Belief. If your mind is a garden, your beliefs are the soil structure and the underlying irrigation system. They are the invisible, foundational software that determines exactly how you interact with the world and what you perceive as possible. Every belief you hold, whether it was consciously adopted or subconsciously absorbed, acts as a filter, a rulebook, and a set of instructions for how your brain interprets incoming data. Many of us go through life believing that we are seeing the world as it objectively is. We assume that if we see a situation as difficult, it is inherently difficult. If we perceive a goal as impossible, we assume that impossibility is a property of the goal itself. But this is a fundamental error. We do not see the world as it is, we see the world as we are. Our beliefs act like a lens. If the lens is cracked, warped, or tinted, the image we receive will be equally distorted. Consider the formative years of your childhood. During that period, your mind was remarkably plastic, absorbing the beliefs of your caregivers, your peers, and your environment without filter. If you were told, intentionally or implicitly, that money is the root of all evil, or that you are not the type of person who succeeds, those statements didn't just stay as words, they became structural elements of your consciousness. They became the invisible software governing your decision-making, your emotional responses, and your risk tolerance today. The danger of this programming is that it is often entirely unconscious. You might consciously want to build a thriving career, but if your subconscious software contains a line of code that says, success is dangerous, you will repeatedly sabotage yourself. You will miss opportunities, mismanage your energy, or find reasons to delay action, all while consciously wondering why you aren't achieving your desired results. You are essentially trying to drive a car with the handbrake firmly engaged. To change your life, you must become an architect of your own belief system. You must start by identifying the inherited software that is no longer serving you. This requires a willingness to investigate your own limitations. When you feel a strong resistance to a goal or a project, stop and ask, what do I believe about this that makes it feel so difficult? What rule am I following right now? Once you identify a disempowering belief, you do not have to fight it, you simply need to override it. You do this by intentionally installing empowering beliefs. This is not about lying to yourself or engaging in mindless, hollow affirmations. It is about choosing a new perspective that is more aligned with the person you are becoming. If your old belief was, "It is too hard to start a new career at this stage," your new, intentional belief could be, "My past experience has given me a unique foundation, and I am fully capable of mastering this new path." Alignment is the key to this process. You must align your beliefs with your destiny. If you want to manifest a life of influence, you must cultivate the belief that your voice has value. If you want to experience abundance, you must cultivate the belief that there is more than enough for everyone and that your contribution is worthy of compensation. You must install these beliefs by consistently reinforcing them through your thoughts, your language, and your actions. As you begin to change the architecture of your beliefs, you will notice a profound shift in your internal reality. Things that once seemed like impenetrable walls will suddenly appear as surmountable challenges. You will feel a newfound sense of permission to pursue your goals, because the inner conflict between your desires and your underlying assumptions will begin to dissipate. You will become a more coherent, powerful version of yourself. This is a deliberate, daily discipline. You are updating your mental operating system. Just as you would regularly update the software on your devices to keep them running efficiently and securely, you must regularly update your belief system to ensure it aligns with your evolving vision. When you encounter a new obstacle, do not just push against it, check your architecture. Ask yourself what belief is allowing this obstacle to exist, and decide if you are ready to update it. You are the architect, the coder, and the user of your own mind. You are no longer bound by the faulty, inherited programs of your past. You have the authority to decide what you will believe, and by doing so, you gain the authority to decide what your reality will be. The structure of your life is being built every moment by the beliefs you hold in your mind. Build it intentionally, with strength, clarity, and purpose. Chapter Summary. Beliefs as invisible software. Our beliefs act as foundational rules and filters that dictate how we interpret reality and what we deem possible. Unmasking inherited programming, much of our limitations stem from childhood conditioning that remains active in our subconscious, often sabotaging our conscious goals without us realizing it. The process of overriding, we can systematically identify and replace disempowering beliefs with empowering ones by consciously choosing perspectives that align with our desired future. Aligning belief with destiny. Success requires internal coherence. We must ensure our foundational assumptions about ourselves and the world are in harmony with the life we aim to manifest. Architectural mastery, updating our mental operating system, is a continuous practice. By regularly checking and refining our beliefs, we maintain the clarity and power. Chapter 8, Imagination, the Hidden Creative Force. Most of humanity treats imagination as a trivial plaything, a distraction used to escape the monotony of daily life or a fleeting faculty reserved for artists and dreamers. We have been taught to prize logic and reality above all else, often discarding our imaginative powers as we age, viewing them as childish or impractical. Yet, if you look at every human achievement, every technological advancement, and every profound shift in history, you will find that it began in the exact same place, the imagination. Imagination is not a distraction from reality, it is the blueprint for reality. It is the primary creative force of the universe, the faculty through which the invisible is rendered visible. Everything you see around you. The chair you are sitting on, the device you are reading this on, the social systems that govern our lives, was once nothing more than a mental image in someone's mind. They held that image with such consistency and intensity that it eventually moved from the realm of thought into the realm of matter. To master your own life, you must reclaim the discipline of your imagination. This is not about letting your mind wander aimlessly. It is about the disciplined use of imagination, often called mental rehearsal. The subconscious mind, which governs the vast majority of our behaviors and reactions, does not distinguish between a vividly imagined event and a real one. When you rehearse a scenario with emotional intensity, your brain physically encodes the neural pathways as if you have already lived through it. This is why peak performers in sports, business, and the arts use mental imagery to prepare for success. They are priming their nervous system to act, react, and succeed long before they step onto the field. Vision must always precede manifestation. You cannot build a structure without a plan, and you cannot manifest a life that you have not first inhabited in the quiet sanctuary of your mind. When you imagine your desired future, you are essentially pre-playing the life you intend to experience. You are training your reticular activating system, the brain's internal filter, to start scanning the world for opportunities, people, and resources that align with that vision. Suddenly, things that were always there but ignored become visible, coincidences begin to occur, the right people appear at the right time. This is not magic, it is the natural consequence of focused, intentional imagination. The challenge, however, is that most people use their imagination to rehearse their fears. They spend hours visualizing potential failures, imagining difficult conversations, or dreading future catastrophes. They are using their creative power to build the very outcomes they wish to avoid. This is the ultimate misuse of a divine gift. If you can vividly imagine what you fear, you can just as easily vividly imagine what you desire. The mental effort is identical, the difference lies entirely in the target. To become internally what you seek externally, you must practice the art of feeling it real. When you imagine your goal, do not do it from a distance, as if you are watching a movie of someone else. Step into the scene. Feel the texture of your success. Hear the sounds of your achievement. Experience the emotional relief or the quiet confidence that comes with the accomplishment. When you anchor your imagination in the feeling of the desired state, you align your entire being. Your physiology, your focus, and your vibrational energy, with that reality. This practice is the bridge between the inner world and the outer world. It is the bridge between the kingdom within and the life you inhabit. When you make this a daily discipline, you start to change. You develop a sense of certainty that is unshakable, because you have already been there, in your mind. You begin to walk, talk, and make decisions from the perspective of your future self. Stop negotiating with your current circumstances by giving them all of your attention. Withdraw that attention, and invest it instead in your mental vision. The world may currently be showing you a limitation, but your imagination is showing you a possibility. Which one will you believe? Which one will you nourish? Your imagination is the most powerful tool you own. It is the workshop of your soul. It is the laboratory where your future is designed. Start today by setting aside time to intentionally construct the vision of your life. Don't let your imagination be a servant to your fears, make it a servant to your potential. See the future you desire so clearly that it feels more real than the present moment. That is how the invisible becomes tangible. That is how you command the creation of your own reality. Chapter Summary. Imagination as a creative blueprint. Far from a trivial distraction, imagination is the fundamental creative force that turns invisible ideas into physical reality. The science of mental rehearsal. The subconscious mind cannot distinguish between vivid imagination and reality. By mentally rehearsing success, we prime our nervous system and neural pathways for actual achievement. Vision precedes manifestation. We must inhabit our desired future internally before it can materialize externally, training our brain's filters to recognize the opportunities and resources aligned with our goals. Stopping the rehearsal of fear, we must consciously pivot our imaginative power from visualizing potential failures to visualizing our desired outcomes, as the mental energy cost is the same for both. Feeling it real, the key to effective imagination is emotional immersion. By experiencing the feeling of the achieved goal, we align our internal frequency with our outward desires and accelerate the manifestation process. Chapter 9. Stop negotiating with your potential. We often treat our potential like a difficult negotiation. We bargain with it, offering to commit only when the conditions are perfect, when we feel ready, or when the fear has completely subsided. We tell ourselves, I will launch this project as soon as I have more time, or I will start living my dream when I have more security. We are constantly waiting for the external world to grant us a sense of safety before we finally step into the greatness that resides within us. But this negotiation is a losing game. The conditions will never be perfect, the fear will never fully vanish, and the right time is a phantom that recedes the moment you approach it. The secret to unlocking your potential is the end of the negotiation. It is the moment you stop asking for permission from your circumstances and start taking radical ownership of your trajectory. Radical ownership means acknowledging that while you cannot control everything that happens to you, you are 100% responsible for how you handle it and how you move forward. It means abandoning the someday mindset in favor of a now commitment. Comfort zones are the primary battleground of this negotiation. The ego loves the comfort zone because it is familiar, predictable, and, above all, safe. But your comfort zone is also a tomb for your potential. It is where dreams go to wither because they are never given the space to grow. To step out of this zone, you must be willing to endure the temporary discomfort of uncertainty. You must embrace the fact that you do not need to know the entire path before you take the first step. You only need the clarity to see the next step and the courage to take it. Delayed decisions are another way we negotiate with our potential. We think that by not deciding, we are keeping our options open. In truth, we are simply leaking energy. Every unresolved decision, every goal left in limbo, and every desire left on the back burner is an anchor dragging behind you, consuming the mental bandwidth you should be using for creation. When you finally make a firm decision, there is a release of tension and a surge of momentum. The universe, or if you prefer, your own subconscious focus, begins to align with that commitment. Courage is often misunderstood as the absence of fear. But courage is not the absence of fear, it is the decision that something else is more important than fear. When you have a vision that is greater than your current comfort, fear becomes a secondary concern. You do not need to wait until you are bold or confident to begin. You begin, and in the act of beginning, you build the confidence you need to continue. You are not waiting to feel ready, you are creating readiness through action. Consider the excuses you frequently use. I don't have enough money, I don't have the right connections, or I'm not an expert yet. These are not facts, they are bargaining chips you are using to maintain your current status. They are the ego's way of keeping you in the safe, familiar hell of your current state. When you stop negotiating, you stop using your intelligence to create excuses and start using it to create solutions. You ask, how can I, rather than, why can't I? This is the shift from being a spectator of your life to being its active participant. Radical ownership means that when you stumble, you don't use it as an excuse to stop. You use it as data. You analyze what went wrong, you adjust your approach, and you keep going. You treat your life as an ongoing experiment in which every outcome is a learning opportunity. You are no longer looking for validation from the world, you are looking for progress, and you are finding it in your own disciplined actions. The time you have is finite. Every moment spent in the negotiation phase is a moment you can never reclaim. You are capable of so much more than you have allowed yourself to express. The only thing standing between you and the expression of that potential is the belief that you must fix yourself or fix your life before you can begin. But you are not a project to be completed, you are a presence to be expressed. Start expressing it. Start now. Don't wait for the feeling of certainty. Certainty is a reward you earn by crossing the bridge, not a ticket you purchase before you step onto it. Stop the negotiation. Declare your commitment. Take the step. Chapter Summary. The futility of bargaining. We often delay our growth by waiting for perfect conditions, but the only time that matters is the present. Negotiation with our potential only serves to maintain our status quo. Radical ownership. True power comes from taking 100% responsibility for our lives, shifting from a mindset of external dependency to one of internal agency. The comfort zone trap. Growth requires the willingness to embrace uncertainty. Our comfort zones are designed to keep us safe, but they inherently stifle our evolution. Decisive action, Indecision is an energy leak. Making a firm commitment creates immediate momentum and allows our focus to align with our desired outcome. Courage is a practice. Courage is not the absence of fear but the prioritization of our vision. Readiness is not a prerequisite for action, but a result of it. Chapter 10, Infinite Intelligence Never Sleeps. We tend to operate under the assumption that our own limited intellect, our personal experience, and our physical labor are the only tools at our disposal. We strain and struggle, trying to force results through sheer effort, feeling that if we aren't exhausted, we aren't working hard enough. But this perspective ignores the most profound resource available to every human being. The infinite intelligence that animates the universe, the same force that governs the rotation of planets, the blooming of flowers, and the complex, beautiful orchestration of your own biological functions. This infinite intelligence is not a distant deity, it is the source of your intuition, your creativity, and your capacity for innovation. It is always present, always active, and, most importantly, it never sleeps. While your conscious mind is limited by your past experiences and your fears, the infinite is unlimited. It has access to solutions you haven't conceived, paths you haven't yet seen, and resources that are currently beyond your awareness. The art of mastery is not just in working hard, it is in learning how to cooperate with this intelligence. Surrender, in this context, is not the same as passivity or giving up. It is the opposite. It is the active, deliberate decision to stop fighting the flow of life and start moving in alignment with it. When you are constantly forcing, clutching, and straining, you create a state of internal tension that actually blocks the flow of inspiration. You are so busy broadcasting your anxiety that you cannot hear the subtle, quiet signals of intuition. When you surrender, you quiet the ego, relax your grip, and open the channels of your mind to receive guidance. Intuition is the language of this infinite intelligence. It is that still, small voice that often speaks through hunches, sudden flashes of clarity, or a deep sense of knowing that bypasses rational analysis. Most of us have been conditioned to distrust this voice, preferring the safer route of logical, step-by-step reasoning. But logic can only build upon what you already know, intuition can lead you toward what you have yet to discover. When you honor your intuition, when you act on those subtle nudges, you begin to move through life with a grace and efficiency that logic alone can never provide. Cooperating with infinite intelligence means living with a sense of active trust. You do your part, you clarify your vision, you take the necessary actions, you do the work, but you detach yourself from the how and the when. You stop demanding that the universe deliver results according to your rigid, human time schedule. You recognize that there is a wider, more complex orchestration at play, and you trust that when you are aligned with your highest purpose, the right people, the right doors, and the right solutions will arrive at the perfect moment. This is not a license to be lazy. It is a license to be guided. When you are in alignment, you find yourself doing more with less effort. You find that work that used to feel like a grind now feels like a flow state. You find that obstacles seem to resolve themselves, not because you fought them, but because you navigated around them with intuitive intelligence. You are no longer just a doer, you are a co-creator. The key is to cultivate the stillness necessary to receive. If your mind is a storm of noise, you will miss the messages that are constantly being broadcast. Daily rituals of silence, meditation, quiet walks, or simply sitting in gratitude, are not just self-care. They are essential maintenance for your connection to the infinite. By silencing the external noise and the internal chatter, you create the frequency of receptivity. You make it possible for your mind to be used as a vessel for higher insights. Remember that you are an extension of this infinite intelligence. There is no separation between your potential and the potential of the universe. The intelligence that created the cosmos is working through you. When you feel stuck, when the logic of your mind offers no clear path, turn inward. Stop trying to force the solution and start asking for it. Ask, what is the next right step, and then be silent enough to listen to the answer. You will be surprised at how often the answer is already there, waiting for you to recognize it. By living in cooperation with this force, you move from a life of struggle to a life of synchronicity. You become a person who seems to move with the wind at their back, someone who encounters lucky breaks, and someone who discovers answers in the most unexpected places. You are simply learning to navigate by the stars rather than the map. You are relying on the infinite capacity of the mind that never sleeps, and in doing so, you are accessing a power that knows no boundaries. Chapter Summary. Beyond limited intellect, we are not limited to our own personal knowledge or effort. We are connected to an infinite intelligence that can provide solutions and paths beyond our current perception. Surrender as cooperation. Surrender is an active process of releasing the tension of forcing results, allowing us to align with the natural flow of inspiration and opportunity. Intuition as guidance. Intuition is the language of the infinite. By learning to trust and act on these subtle insights, we move beyond the limits of pure logic. The art of active trust. True mastery involves combining diligent, intentional action with the trust that the universe will provide the how and the when, if we remain aligned with our purpose. Cultivating receptivity, we must intentionally create space for stillness and silence in our daily lives. Chapter 11, The Discipline of Inner Dominion. Mastery is not a destination, nor is it a gift bestowed upon a chosen few. It is a discipline. If you want to experience a life of peace, influence, and purpose, you must be willing to exercise absolute dominion over the one thing you actually control, your inner state. Most people live as leaves in the wind, their emotions and thoughts dictated by the shifting weather of their external environment. When things go well, they are happy. When things go poorly, they are miserable. This is not living, it is merely reacting. To achieve inner dominion, you must cultivate the ability to select your thoughts and govern your emotional responses, regardless of the stimuli you encounter. This is the ultimate form of self-mastery. It requires you to act as the gatekeeper of your consciousness, allowing only those thoughts that align with your highest vision to pass into the sanctuary of your mind. Emotional mastery does not mean suppressing your feelings. It means refusing to be hijacked by them. When you feel the onset of irritation, fear, or insecurity, you must practice the sacred pause. In that brief moment between the stimulus, an event, and your response, your action/thought, there is a space. That space is your freedom. If you act immediately, you are a slave to your patterns. If you use that space to breathe, to observe, and to consciously choose your state, you are a master. This discipline requires daily habits. Just as a physical athlete trains their body through consistent, repetitive movement, you must train your mind through consistent, repetitive mental focus. Gratitude is not just a polite sentiment, it is a mental weightlifting exercise. When you force your mind to focus on what you appreciate, you are training your brain to scan for abundance rather than lack. Similarly, meditation is not just about relaxing. It is the practice of detaching from the ego's chatter and returning to the calm, steady center of your awareness. You must also protect your inner peace with the same fervor you would use to protect your home. You would not allow a stranger to walk into your house and dump garbage on your floor, yet, we frequently allow negative media, toxic gossip, and limiting belief systems to invade our minds. You have the right to set boundaries. You can choose to step away from conversations that drain you. You can choose to curate the information you consume. You can choose to disengage from narratives that promote fear, division, or victimhood. The discipline of inner dominion also involves thought selection. You are constantly bombarded by thousands of thoughts every day. You do not need to entertain all of them. Think of your mind like a garden. Just because a seed blows over the fence does not mean you have to plant it and water it. You have the power to examine a thought and ask, does this thought serve my purpose? Is this true? Is this helpful? If the answer is no, you have the authority to dismiss it. You don't have to fight it, you simply withdraw your attention, and like a fire deprived of oxygen, it will die out. This practice may feel difficult at first. The ego will resist, wanting to return to its comfortable cycles of worry and reaction. That is to be expected. Do not judge your setbacks. When you lose your center, simply notice it, forgive yourself, and return to your practice. The goal is not perfection, the goal is persistence. Over time, you will notice that the sacred pause becomes shorter, your ability to remain calm in the face of adversity becomes stronger, and your capacity to hold a positive vision becomes effortless. Ultimately, inner dominion is about identity. When you take command of your thoughts and emotions, you stop identifying with the turbulence of the world and start identifying with the peace at the core of your being. You become an anchor in the storm. People will notice that you are different, not because you have changed your external circumstances, but because you have changed your inner posture. You radiate a quiet, unshakable confidence that comes from knowing you are the master of your own mental realm. This is the power that transcends all external limitations. When you have conquered your own mind, you have conquered the world. The challenges are still there, but they no longer have the power to define you, distress you, or derail you. You are the architect, the master, and the guardian of your own kingdom. Stay vigilant, stay consistent, and keep your gaze fixed on the inner state you are creating. Chapter Summary. Dominion versus reactivity. True mastery is the ability to choose our state of being rather than having it dictated by external circumstances. The sacred pause, freedom is found in the space between a stimulus and our response. By utilizing this pause, we move from being victims of habit to masters of our choices. Mental conditioning, consistent habits, such as gratitude and meditation, are essential tools for strengthening our mental muscles and maintaining our focus on positive outcomes. Protecting the mental gate, we must proactively curate our environment, information intake, and social interactions to ensure they support our inner peace rather than erode it. Persistence over perfection. Inner dominion is a practice, not an end state. Success lies in the persistent commitment to returning to our calm, centered awareness whenever the ego pulls us back into reactive patterns. Chapter 12. Walking as your future self. We often make the mistake of waiting for the external world to become our dream before we decide to start being the person who lives that dream. We think, once I have the 6-bedroom mansion in Runda, I will feel successful, or, when I have 1 million followers, I will feel influential. This logic is a trap that keeps us perpetually stuck in the present moment, waiting for a future that never arrives because we have not prepared our internal identity to receive it. The secret to profound transformation is to walk as your future self now. This is the act of identity transformation. It is the conscious decision to drop the mantle of who you have been and wrap yourself in the mantle of who you are becoming. This is not about pretending to be something you are not. It is about stepping into the truth of who you were always meant to be. It is a fundamental shift in your internal posture. When you start walking as your future self, your entire way of moving through the world changes. You stop asking, "How can I get this?" and start asking, "How would I think if I already had this?" You stop making decisions based on your past insecurities or your current lack and start making decisions based on the values, habits, and confidence of the person you have envisioned. This is a subtle yet incredibly powerful shift. It is the difference between a life of frantic, desperate seeking and a life of calm, confident embodying. Consider the person who wants to be a successful, influential author. If they act from their current identity, they might spend their days feeling overwhelmed by the technicality of writing, constantly doubting the quality of their work, and waiting for external validation to prove they are real. But if they act from the identity of the future author, a person who is already established, respected, and clear in their purpose, they would approach their work differently. They would write with discipline because they know their voice has value. They would handle setbacks as temporary hurdles, not as evidence of their failure. They would carry themselves with the ease of someone who already knows their success is inevitable. This transformation requires you to embody the higher consciousness of your desired state. You must observe your habits and ask yourself, does this action align with the person I am becoming? If you are striving to be a person of health, you will make different choices about how you fuel your body and how you manage your stress. If you are striving to be a leader, you will make different choices about how you communicate and how you manage your time. You are not waiting for the result to be the person, you are becoming the person, and the result is the inevitable consequence of that shift. This, living in alignment before external proof, is a form of spiritual audacity. It requires you to be comfortable being misunderstood by those who only see your current circumstances. They may look at you and see what you were, but you must remain anchored in what you are becoming. You don't need their permission or their acknowledgement. Your inner experience of your identity is the only authority that matters. When you are fully anchored in this new identity, the external world has no choice but to eventually mirror it back to you. It is a psychological law that you cannot keep a version of yourself that is inconsistent with your internal identity. This is a daily, moment-to-moment practice. It's in the way you stand, the way you speak, and the way you handle challenges. Whenever you find yourself reverting to the old, small version of yourself, gently pivot. Remind yourself, that is who I was. This is who I am now. You are not changing your history, you are upgrading your trajectory. You are building the house of your future by laying the bricks of your current identity with intentionality. As you walk in this way, the proof you were waiting for will begin to manifest. It will appear not as a surprise, but as the natural completion of the work you have already done within. You will realize that the future wasn't a destination at all, it was simply a state of being that you finally granted yourself permission to occupy. Keep walking in the power of this new identity. The world is waiting for you to fully embody the person you have come here to be. Chapter Summary. Identity Transformation. We must shift from waiting for external results to embodying the identity of our future self now. Transformation is an internal shift that precedes external reality. The shift in posture, walking as your future self, changes the way you navigate the world, transforming your decision-making from fear-based seeking to confident, aligned action. Acting with alignment. Every daily choice should be filtered through the lens of your desired identity. By consistently aligning your actions with this vision, you solidify your new state of being. Spiritual audacity. Becoming the person you envision requires the courage to maintain your inner identity even when external circumstances have not yet shifted to match it. The inevitability of results. External manifestation is not the cause of our transformation, but the inevitable consequence. By fully embodying our future identity, we force the Chapter 13, Becoming Unshakable. Life will inevitably present you with challenges. There is no version of success, no level of enlightenment, and no state of prosperity that exempts you from the friction of existence. Challenges are not a sign that you have failed or that you have taken a wrong turn, they are the natural resistance of the world that provides the raw material for your growth. The difference between those who are crushed by adversity and those who are forged by it is not the absence of difficulty, but the internal stability of the individual. This is the essence of becoming unshakable. To be unshakable is not to be rigid or unfeeling. It is to possess a center so profound that external chaos cannot penetrate it. It is the ability to respond rather than react. When you react, you are at the mercy of the event. When you respond, you are using the event as a catalyst for your own purpose. A reactive person feels done to by life, but a responsive person understands that every obstacle is simply a question: who are you, and what will you choose now? Becoming unshakable requires a fundamental reevaluation of how you view adversity. We often view problems as intrusions, annoying deviations from the path we should be on. But what if the problem is the path? What if the very difficulty you are facing is the specific set of circumstances designed to stretch you, strengthen you, and reveal the power you have been neglecting? When you stop labeling challenges as bad and start seeing them as part of the process, you instantly diminish their power to disturb your peace. You stop fighting the current and start using the energy of the water to propel you forward. This stability is rooted in your detachment from the outcome. This does not mean you do not care about the result, it means you are not dependent on it for your sense of self. When your identity is tied to your success, any failure feels like a threat to your existence. But when your identity is tied to your own internal growth, success and failure become merely data points in an ongoing experiment. You can fail at a task without being a failure. You can lose a resource without losing your value. This detachment is the source of true resilience. You cultivate this unshakable quality through the discipline of remaining present. Anxiety about the future or resentment toward the past are the primary thieves of your inner stability. When you are fully present, you are only ever dealing with what is in front of you. Most of the time, the crisis is not as big as your mind makes it out to be. Your mind thrives on catastrophic thinking: if this goes wrong, then that will happen, and eventually, I will lose everything. When you feel this happening, return to the immediate moment. Breathe. Look at the facts. What is the one thing you can do right now to move forward? That focus is a shield. Furthermore, being unshakable requires that you have a purpose that is larger than your personal comfort. When your life is dedicated to a vision, whether it is raising your family, building a business that contributes to others, or simply embodying a higher standard of character, your individual difficulties lose their capacity to paralyze you. You are no longer navigating by your own temporary moods, you are navigating by a North Star. When you have a strong enough why, you can endure almost any how. There will be days when the world feels like it is falling apart. There will be moments when your plans fail, when people disappoint you, and when the path ahead seems obscured by fog. In those moments, do not look to the external world for security. It will not be there. Look within. Connect with that silent, steady presence that has been with you through every challenge you have ever faced. That presence is the part of you that is already unshakable. It is the kingdom within that remains untouched by the shifting tides of the world. When you embody this, you become a source of stability for others. You become a person people look to in times of crisis, not because you are unaffected by the challenge, but because you are unshaken by it. You have transformed from a person who needs the world to be perfect to a person who is capable of bringing light, order, and calm into any environment. You are no longer living in fear of the next challenge, you are ready to use it as the fuel for your next level of growth. Chapter Summary. The nature of adversity. Challenges are an inevitable part of life and serve as the essential resistance needed for personal growth and the forging of character. Responsiveness versus reactivity. Being unshakable is the ability to respond to events with intention rather than reacting to them with fear or defensiveness. Reframing the obstacle, we must view challenges not as intrusions on our path, but as the path itself, recognizing them as opportunities to exercise our power and purpose. Detachment from outcome. True resilience comes from basing our identity on our internal growth rather than our external successes, making us immune to the threat of failure. Anchoring in purpose. Having a purpose larger than our personal comfort provides a North Star that keeps us grounded and persistent, even when our external circumstances are in flux. Chapter 14, Heaven Begins Today. We have journeyed through the architecture of the mind, the mechanics of belief, and the discipline of inner dominion. We have explored how the invisible threads of your consciousness weave the tapestry of your external life. If there is one singular truth to carry forward, it is this: heaven is not a distant reward, it is a present-tense state of alignment. It is the experience of living with conscious intention, heart-centered purpose, and the steady, quiet realization that you are the architect of your own reality. Many people finish a journey like this and immediately look for a next step in the outside world. They look for new books, new teachers, or new external strategies. But the transformation you seek is not found in more information, it is found in the integration of what you already know. The kingdom of God is within you. It is not hidden, it is simply waiting for your recognition. Your task now is not to acquire more, but to activate more of what is already your inherent nature. Living with conscious intention is the daily practice of maintaining this activation. It means waking up in the morning and, before you check your messages or look at your calendar, declaring the state of mind you intend to occupy throughout the day. It is the ritual of checking in with yourself periodically. At noon, at dusk, before you sleep, to ask, am I operating from my higher self, or have I drifted back into the automated loops of the ego? Daily rituals are the scaffolds upon which you build a transformed life. Whether it is a few minutes of silent meditation, the discipline of journaling your gratitude, or the mental rehearsal of your future achievements, these practices are not just tasks. They are the anchor points that tether your consciousness to your highest potential. When the world is loud and demanding, these rituals remind you of who you are and where you are going. They are the daily resets that keep you from slipping back into the invisible prison of your old conditioning. The transformation you are seeking is a lifelong process. Do not be discouraged if you find yourself slipping, doubting, or reacting. You are dismantling years of deep-seated programming. It is natural for the old patterns to try and reassert themselves. The measure of your success is not your ability to be perfect, it is your speed in returning to your center. The more you practice, the shorter the duration of your off-center moments will become. You will find that you spend more time in a state of flow, and less time in the friction of struggle. As you move forward, remember that you are not just building a life for yourself, you are radiating a frequency that affects everyone around you. When you choose peace over conflict, confidence over fear, and purpose over stagnation, you become a beacon. You demonstrate to others that it is possible to rise above the limitations of their circumstances. You become a living example that heaven is not a myth, but a tangible, observable, and replicable state of consciousness. You have the power to create a life that feels as good on the inside as it looks on the outside. You have the tools to silence the critic in your head, to rewrite the software of your beliefs, and to command the creative power of your imagination. You are no longer waiting for the world to change, you are the catalyst for the change you wish to see. The book ends here, but the journey of your life, the true masterpiece, is just beginning. Every moment is a fresh canvas. Every thought is a new brushstroke. Every decision is a declaration of your power. Do not save your best life for someday. Do not reserve your joy for when your bank account hits a certain number or your circumstances finally align with your preferences. Start today. Start in the middle of your mess. Start with exactly what you have and exactly where you are. Heaven begins the moment you decide to own your mind. It begins when you stop negotiating with your potential and start embodying your power. It begins when you recognize that you are the creator of your reality, not its victim. You are the architect of your own joy. You are the gardener of your own peace. You are the master of your own destiny. The kingdom is within. The key is in your hand. Step through the door, and begin to live. Chapter Summary. Heaven as a present reality. Heaven is a state of conscious alignment accessible now, not a destination we earn in the future. The power of integration. True transformation is not found in endless external learning, but in the consistent application and integration of our internal principles. The necessity of rituals, daily practices, like meditation, gratitude, and conscious check-ins, act as essential scaffolds that maintain our connection to our higher self and prevent us from slipping back into old patterns. The grace of persistence. Perfection is not the goal is the speed at which we return to our center after a setback. This resilience is the mark of true inner mastery. Becoming a catalyst. By living from our highest state, we not only transform our own lives but also become beacons of possibility for everyone around us, proving that inner sovereignty is attainable.